2 children are among 7 people killed in flash floods in Mandeni and Ladysmith on Christmas Eve. Emergency service officials in KZN are currently looking for 11 others who remain missing. Newzroom Afrika's Karinda Jagmohan joins us now live with those details. Karinda, a very good evening to you. A sad one for families and friends who may be desperately looking for their loved ones.
Certainly so. Good evening. We spent most of the day on the ground in Ladysmith, searching along the riverbanks of the Klip River with the Mthembu family. This is a family who saw 9 of their loved ones go missing at midnight on Christmas Eve. That's when the torrential rain struck Ladysmith and the flash floods occurred. Ultimately, 11 people are missing. 6 people were found deceased yesterday. Their bodies were recovered in Ladysmith. That includes a child. We understand, and we went to one of the most affected areas, the area called Caravan Park in Ladysmith, where there was utter devastation, homes swept away. And in that area, we were told that a father and his 2 children were swept away by the floods that hit very suddenly, almost going up a meter high with regards to the waist level. The daughter was found deceased, and the father and son are still missing. As we went around the area speaking to search and rescue teams, they say they couldn't find any further human remains today because of the weather conditions. It's still raining. The current of the water is still strong, making their work very difficult. But while they have the expertise to do this, many citizens were on the ground searching in these very grueling conditions. Among them, the Mthembu family. Like I mentioned, they lost 9 people. 6 of their family members are still missing. 3 family members were recovered yesterday in a vehicle that they went missing in. We spent much of the day with one man, Mr. Mthembu, who lost his son and kept searching throughout, and despite the grueling conditions, very cold, with very little protection on, prodding through the debris, calling out for his son's name, and still saying that he hopes to at least find his son's body so that he can bury his son. Take a listen.
Umfana atefunda esikolweni eNewcastle, isikolo sakhe i-high school eseNewcastle. Ngiyakhohlwa noma imajuba noma ibani, kodwa nathi efunda eNewcastle ebuye ngokuvakasha ngoba bevalile ekhaya. Nje kumntwana nje alright, ngamaze lutho okunye. Ngisenethemba lokuthi ukumthola ukuthi vele la kakhona seshonile kunale ngilindele lokho. Kodwa nje kulindela khona ithemba lokuthi ngimthole ngiyombeka ngokuthula.
Indeed, so you hear there Mr. Mthembu speaking about his son, and the family will continue their search tomorrow. But the local mayor told Newzroom Afrika in an interview this morning that among their requests to provincial government is to have the assistance of a helicopter to help with the search, because the riverbank is quite a lengthy, expansive area, and it is difficult for families and for search and rescue teams to continue with the search in the conditions that be cold and raining outside. And so we understand that a delegation from the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Department will be on the ground tomorrow. So we'll be following them as well to see how they are assisting and what more can be done as well, as we see the aftermath of yet another natural disaster in KwaZulu-Natal.
And this aftermath, Karinda, we know has also resulted in damage of infrastructure, as several cars were also washed away.
Indeed, several vehicles washed away. In fact, the members of the Mthembu family were in their vehicle when the vehicle was swept away by the torrential rain and flooding that occurred in the afternoon. We saw their vehicle. It was a Ford Ranger, and the front windshield was smashed through. The community says this occurred because of the rocks and the debris that was carried by the water. In fact, one family member said that one of their loved ones were heard screaming from the vehicle while being swept away. But there was nothing that they could do because of the might of the water, the severity of the current, which we're still seeing right now. And right now, across the province, 7 people have died. So in Mandeni, which is just north of eThekwini, an 8-year-old child died while he was trying to cross a low-lying bridge that had flooded because of the same severe weather. And currently, search and rescue teams also continue there because that situation is still unfolding. And so here in Ladysmith, we know that 6 people so far are confirmed having passed away, 11 people still missing. So overall, in KZN, from Christmas Eve, 7 people died due to severe weather, but also we're hearing reports of car accidents that have occurred during this time where people's lives were also lost, possibly not directly related to the severe weather, but of course the road conditions are quite terrible as well during this time, and so that may have led to that as well. Really, it's a very difficult time for people, especially in the areas that are impacted by this heavy rain. There is a call as this rain continues for people who are living close to riverbanks to try and find another place to sleep if possible, to avoid falling victim to what is happening where riverbanks are overflowing because of the torrential rain. This rainy weather will continue tomorrow. It's not as rainy. The precipitation is at about 5%, so it's not as bad, but it is still going to be cold, and only sunny weather forecast for Thursday, when at least search and rescue teams, as well as families who are adamant to continue this rescue as well, they search as well on the ground. Actually go to the ground in better conditions and try and look for their loved ones among the debris. And also there is that request for more assets, more resources by provincial government. So when they're here tomorrow, there will certainly be that call made. They'll be visiting families, visiting victims as well, and we'll keep you updated with what with regards to what the Kokta MEC has to say.
You make mention of the provincial government. Of course, it would be interesting to know what they've had to say about this in the wake of the deadly floods of April 2022, where a lot of families are still living in emergency housing and they're complaining about government not keeping up to their promises. What is the plan? I mean, one would have thought they could have perhaps now be better prepared for situations and incidents like this.
Certainly, since 2022, there has been a discussion about disaster management teams, weather systems that can ensure that communities are alerted well beforehand of imminent severe weather. And we have seen a certain improvement over the past month with regards to the weather forecast, where there is an alert sent out. But that alert we're seeing sent out on the media groups that we're part of as journalists, and communities might feel a bit different, as well as communities don't necessarily have any other place to go. In many cases, those who are living in homes that are not as well built, that can withstand such torrential rain, are living near riverbanks because they have nowhere else to live because of socioeconomic conditions that they have. So there is definitely a call by communities for assistance with regards to building better houses in places that are safer. They can't do it themselves because in many cases, as we know, countrywide, there is an issue with regards to job opportunities where people can actually be able to build their own house or afford a better living place. And ultimately, it goes back to those socio-economic conditions. With regards to weather disaster management systems, ultimately on the ground today, the search and rescue teams were mostly made up of a private company, IPSS Medical Rescue, and they did work with another NPO, the Al-Imdad Foundation. We did see SAPS on the ground as well, but their numbers were not as large as the private search and rescue teams too. Perhaps tomorrow Kokta will shed some more light with regards to the capacity that they have on the ground. But as we see climate change continuing and more severe weather patterns countrywide, it's certainly, and many opposition political parties have raised the fact that there needs to be more done to strengthen disaster management teams countrywide, especially here in KZN, where we have large water masses, many people living in rural areas where their structures are not as strong. So a team that is able to go out very quickly, an area where people can go to seek shelter. In this case, some people are living at community halls right now in Ladysmith. They might get some temporary shelter, or they might get material to rebuild their homes, as we see, which often happens after shack fires occur. But ultimately, like you mentioned, from 2022, there are still people who were impacted by that flood that happened in KZN that are still living in temporary shelters. There has been a question about land parcels. The Human Settlements MEC said that that is still being allocated and gave a number of reasons with regards to why there has been delays there. But still, a major issue is that ultimately, because of socio-economic conditions, people don't have strong houses that can withstand the severe weather we're seeing, and it is up to government now to come up to the task to ensure that they can strengthen their systems, because it is likely that we are going to see this again. It's not the first time it's happened in Ladysmith in years, and in fact, last year in January, we were here in Ladysmith where parts of the CBD was almost underwater. We were going through the CBD area on a boat because of the severity of the storm and the fact that that river had overflowed. So it is happening constantly, and there is a need for better infrastructure. And certainly, deadly incidents like this, as horrific as they are, is a point where conversation needs to be had and discussion be had about improvements that should be made to the systems currently in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Karinda. Jagmohan, giving us some insight and, of course, developments of a leading story will continue to track throughout the course of the next coming days, the floods in KZN.